honor is bringing up to start off our reading tonight, Vanessa Hua. Hi, everyone. It's an honor to be here tonight. I'm dazzled every day by the talent, creativity, and caring at Sewanee. A huge thanks to Leah, Gwen, Adam, the new ASL interpreter, Emily, and the entire hard-working staff. And it's been really fun teaming up with Maurice again. Our workshop is amazing, and I'm deeply moved by the way you show up for each other every day. I'll be reading from Forbidden City, which is about Chairman Mao's teenage protege and lover. You may find it helpful to hear that it was the first book I ever wrote, but the third one I published. It took 14 years in total, nearly a third of my life. If you have a long-running project right now that seems impossible, keep the faith. So every time I come to Sewanee, I swim in a pretty little lake not far from the inn. It is heaven. I was there this morning. And so I decided that swimming would be a theme for tonight's selections, continuing what Alexander began so beautifully last night. I'm also dedicating this reading to the Sewanee Swim Club. Thanks for the memories. The chairman was a swimmer too and spent much of his time at the pool. My protagonist, May, does as well, in between her lessons, training to become a model revolutionary. In this scene, she's worried about being pregnant and is trying to figure out how to get rid of it. Forbidden City. That afternoon, in the changing room at the pool, I got into my bathing suit and studied myself in the tiny, round mirror. My belly didn't seem any bigger. The tightness of my swim gear made me feel sleek, slippery as water. Though I craved that constraint, that feeling that the fabric held me together, it might also reveal every new bump and curve if my body betrayed me. I got in, floating on my back, arched like a bow with my arms above my head. A mural spanned the ceiling, filled with golden wheat sheaves, glorious blue skies, and smiling peasant women with bulging forearms and calves. Heroes and martyrs of the revolution. Not a pregnant woman or mother among them, as far as I could tell. No child underfoot, no baby strapped to their back. The chairman glided towards me, the bubbles trailing in a veil behind him. When he swam, he became calligraphy, a poem as stunning in its twirling curves as in its meaning. He surfaced beside me. "Let's see how long we can last underwater," he said. After filling our lungs, we dropped to the bottom of the pool. I sat with my knees up, my arms wrapped around my legs, while the chairman dangled and hovered. He strained against himself, his cheeks puffing, his entire body shaking, and bubbles trickling from his mouth. I sank deeper into myself. When the chairman tickled me, digging his fingers into my waist and my armpits, I held steady, letting only a single air bubble escape to tease him. He watched my face, but I allowed nothing more. The water pressed down on me, pushing me to the bottom of the pool, plugging up my ears. Could it explode what might be growing inside of me? Like a grape squashed underfoot. The chairman kicked to the surface, breaking through and roiling the water behind him. After waiting underwater a while longer, I surfaced. Unsnapping my cap, I climbed out of the pool and draped a towel around myself. Though the pool was warm as a bath, by the end of our swims, I felt chilled and my skin wrinkled and pale. The chairman, sulking at his loss, fiddled with the edge of the towel. He draped it over his head and reclined in his wooden lounge chair. I sat beside him. My skin prickled despite the steamy heat of the pool, and I felt as if I might come apart with a tug. I needed the Dong Kwai, and I needed Ma. The chairman didn't notice. The attendants rolled him into a pool of sunlight, the wheels of the lounge chair squeaking like mice caught in a trap. There they bathed him, dipping towels into a basin of warm water, wringing out the excess before wiping him down. He never showered or bathed, considering it pointless when he swam almost every day. He gave a shake of delight like a cat stretching in the sunshine. The attendants progressed down his body, wiping his legs, the bottom of his feet. He laughed, ever ticklish, and beside his ears, then laid a fresh hot towel over his face. Drops trickled down my neck, my body, and pooled at my feet. I moved over to his deck chair and tugged on his big toe. "My mother?" I asked. He didn't answer. "I want to see her," I said. The chairman tossed aside the towel on his face. Sitting up, he blew through his teeth. "You say you want to be a model revolutionary, but you're not putting the revolution first." He draped the towel back over his face. "My parents can help you," I said. He didn't move. "You're always saying that you can't trust the reports about peasants. My parents can tell us firsthand about what's happening with no one else getting in between." The chairman whipped the towel off and threw it at me. I caught it one-handed. He got to his feet. "Your parents, they taught you to worship them, to put them before your country," he said. Footsteps echoed, echoing off the concrete floors. When Secretary Sun entered the pool deck, it seemed he could tell he'd walked into an argument. It was time for my afternoon lessons. "I bought the report," he told the chairman, and handed him a folder. Secretary Sun turned to me. "Let's go." But the chairman wasn't finished with me. "When's the last time you saw your family?" he asked. Secretary Sun hesitated. "Last year, a year and a half ago, before Lunar New Year," he said. "And they only lived 15 minutes away," the chairman said. He tried to pour a cup of tea. When nothing came out, servant Ping bolted over, apologizing. The servants hovered over the chairman's every breath and burp, but didn't know what to make of me. She bent over to retrieve the pot, thrusting her bottom into his face. His eyes lingered, out of instinct, habit, desire. "Do you want to see your family?" he asked. He played off everyone around him, praising one and criticizing the other, then doing the reverse the following week. Now it was my turn. "I have no family but the revolution," she cried, fist to her chest. He asked Servant Ting the same question, shouting the same reply. She stepped away from the wall and struck an identical pose. I wanted to smack them. "I have no family but the revolution," I said. "Listen to them. They don't even know what they're saying. They're just repeating something they just once heard." I started to pace. "Her pronunciation is good, and her grammar too," the chairman told Secretary Sun. "But the way she walks, it's like she's hauling a bale of hay on her back." I halted. "I'm not a donkey. 去你的," the rudest words that passed between the men in my village that I'd never dared utter. The chairman shook his head. "And what?" she says. "How do we stop that?" he asked Secretary Sun. "I need to stop listening to you," I said. He snorted with laughter. Even he couldn't deny that he often uttered those very words himself. "A visit from my parents isn't for you. It isn't for me, it's for you. It's for the revolution," I said. Servant Ping, Servant Ting didn't have any reason to see their families. "They don't have my duties," I said. "They did," he said. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. No one spoke. When I grazed my knuckles against the chairman's, he withdrew from my touch, receding, flattening, once again becoming the giant portrait in Tiananmen Square. I felt tiny and hollow. I shouldn't have argued with him, asked to see my parents, made him think I was stupid and backwards, a waste of his time. "Let's go," Secretary Sun said to me. I walked off, trying to collect myself. Then, without a word, the chairman lunged to his feet and shoved me into the deep end. As soon as I hit the water, I forgot how to swim. Thrashing, 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 I coughed, sinking to the bottom. Nose stinging, eyes burning, I finally swam to the side. I hoisted myself out, draped over the concrete, half in, half out of the pool. The chairman stood over me. Secretary Sun took a few steps, but stopped short of reaching in to help. "You wanted a life preserver?" the chairman asked. A few years ago, he'd invited Khrushchev, the Soviet premier here. Khrushchev, who didn't know how to swim, had bobbed around in a life ring while his bodyguards waited in around him, standing within arm's reach. He'd been humiliated. "You have to be prepared," the chairman said. "You rescued yourself, not your father, not your mother, you." So the next scene takes place much later in the novel. when the chairman swims the Yangtze River to prove that he's still mighty, still able to lead the country. It's based on a historic swim that kicked off the Cultural Revolution. Trimmed in silver, the chairman's armored sedan seemed impenetrable, its engine rumbling through my body like thunder. When I asked Secretary Sun to pull aside the stiff brown curtains, I glimpsed the steamboats, their brass fittings bright and blinding. They chugged in place, billowing acrid, greasy coal smoke. Downstream, photographers jostled on a floating platform, their cameras glittering in the sunshine like a many-eyed monster. Thousands of swimmers massed on the bank, scores of them carrying huge crimson flags and banners. Giant slogans praising the chairman and the revolution had been carved in the hills, struggle against heaven and earth. With 3 sharp blasts of a whistle, the flag bearers plunged into the water. Firecrackers exploded. As smoke twisted in the air, a man stumbled, his flag almost dipping into the river before another swimmer swooped in to rescue it. You can't cling to the edge. There's no stopping, Secretary Sun warned me. He'd been trying to persuade me not to go in. Each year at this event, a few people drowned, dragged by the fast swirling current, or snagged underwater by branches. What do you know? The chairman asked him. You don't even know how to swim. I can float when I get tired, I said. The chairman snorted. You should float the whole way. When you swim, you thrash about like you're covered in fire ants. Exactly why she shouldn't go in, Secretary Sun said. The crowd surged on land, sure to surge in the water. Maybe we should both wait. Go in when it's safe, I said. Enough, the chairman said. I've waited long enough. Do what you like, he told me. Eyes stinging, I turned away. The chairman ordered the driver to bring us around to the grandstand where the dignitaries awaited. After the guard waved our 3-car caravan into the fenced-off staging area, the chairman climbed out, grunting as he pushed off the seat. In his white swim trunks, white bathrobe, and white sandals, he glowed. Without stopping to talk to any of the officials, he headed straight for the river. Bodyguards flanked him, shouting at people to give way, but a crowd that big could never be contained. That was what attracted the chairman, a chance to lose himself among the masses as others lost themselves in him. The chairman's bald spot glinted in the sunshine as he paused to shake hands and pat shoulders. He wanted to be carried along the stream of people, to forget the sound of his own labored breathing as he became something greater. Once more, a spark turned into a prairie fire. Waving all the while, the chairman climbed aboard a motor launch, which he cruised toward the center of the river, so broad that the spectators on the other side were dots. He flung off his robe and jumped in, throwing up a huge splash. Only the wide Yangtze surged and seethed as chaotic as a revolution he wanted to take hold. Only the Yangtze could show the people what he had mastered, and into the Yangtze he went. A chant started up. Long live the chairman. A long, long life to the chairman. The bodyguards followed him into the river, along with the swimmers whose black rubber caps turned them identical. The driver started up the engine, pulled away from the caravan, and drove us to a grassy bank overlooking the river. The sedan was always parked separately to ensure no assassin took note of the chairman's license plate number. Weighed down by the armor, the sedan never jounced, not even on the dirt. The driver nodded at me and Secretary Sun in the rearview mirror. After exiting the sedan, he lit a cigarette before ambling closer toward shore to watch the swimmers. With the air conditioning turned off, the temperatures rose inside the sedan. Cracking the door open, I leaned back in my seat until my head stopped spinning and adjusted the robe of my bathing suit, grown loose after much use. The sleeves of my robe, a cast-off of the chairman's, dangled past my hand and slid off my shoulders. I pushed back the strap of my worn bathing suit, but not before Secretary Sun glimpsed my right nipple. He twisted away as though I'd struck him. Sweat trickled between my breasts, a slickness that I realized I wanted Secretary Sun to trace the length of my body. The chairman had awoken something in me, something I couldn't admit until now, that had nothing to do with him and entirely with me. To fall into that ache now seemed irresistible, inevitable. You don't have to swim, Secretary Sun said. It's dangerous. It's just as dangerous not to, I said. The chairman's waiting. If I don't go, Midnight Chang or someone else will. Then I asked the question I'd been too afraid to say out loud. Is the madame trying to help hurt my family? She can't do anything if you keep the chairman, please, he said. You're not like the others. You notice what others don't. When you're used to being the most... He paused. He didn't say beautiful, but that was what he meant. The dance troupe was full of beautiful girls. Everyone except for me. Teacher Fan, we agreed that you see things as they are, he said. So do you, I said. You say it, though. The way you see, you make me see, he said. He took my hand, the gesture easy as if he'd done so thousands of times. Palm to palm, the heat passed through us, and those gentle fingers undid me. We kissed, my mouth opening up to his, tentative, then devouring. My hands clutched his head, and we moved across all his surfaces, his stubble, his jaw, the notch at his waist, and his sweat slicked back. He jerked away. With a shudder, I gripped something on the seat beside me, a wide lace drape I must have yanked down. Nudging aside the curtain, I didn't see the driver through the dark glass. It was reckless, madness, even if the sedan's passenger compartment appeared sealed up tight as a tomb. I dropped the edge of the curtain, and the interior of the car went dim again. I locked the doors, and then we fell into each other at the same time, our kisses even more urgent than before. Sinking onto the floor of the sedan, I undid the buttons of his pants, touching him. His fingers slid beneath the leg band of my swimsuit and then inside me, touching and touching, delicate and insistent. His lips crushed against my neck, and our bodies slid together. Soap bubbles, floating, bursting. Still pressed against him, I slowly became aware of our surroundings. The cheering swelled, the sound muffled by the pounding in my ears. The air inside the sedan had turned scorching, pungent with the salt and tang of our bodies. With each breath, I regained myself. When I left, he didn't try to stop me. It took a minute to reach the edge of the crowd and a few more before I arrived at the riverbank. My lips felt swollen, bee-stung. Without a backward glance, I shrugged off my robe, kicked off my sandals, and pushed into the breeze, carrying the muddy, wet scent of the water. After I leapt in, splashes pounded around me. Arms, elbows, legs, knees pummeled my face, my sides, my back, and I lost sense of where I was, swimming to shore or into the river, sinking or surfacing. I'd forgotten my goggles and cap, and I swam blindly in the murky water, my hair slipping loose from its ponytail and tangling in my face like weeds. Ahead of me, a swimmer called for help, all wild arms and choked screams. "Float on your back," a woman shouted. "I'm coming," a man cried. Amid the commotion, I couldn't tell what happened to the drowning swimmer. Someone kicked me in the face, and coppery blood flooded my mouth. Another kick to my side, and I inhaled water, foul and turbulent as my desires. The chairman didn't know what I'd done to Secretary Sun, but he could still punish me for my every selfish wish. He must have known what would happen in the river and that the swimmers would engulf me. Blows battered me from my sisters, dead and alive, from Midnight Chang, from Busy Shan, Teacher Fan, and the president. Another from the madame, from the chairman himself. I gave in to the kicks and slaps and slipped beneath the surface, beneath the churn, and into the darkness. It would be easy to sink, to let the water fill my lungs, to sink to the bottom where I belonged. I broke free, though, clawing each stroke until I pushed back up through the surface, gasping. I swam and swam toward the center of the river and away from the crowds. When the current pulled me, I flipped onto my back, inhaling the scent of osmanthus on the breeze. Floating, I drifted faster than the clouds. So toward the end of the novel, May attempts to escape China, using the very same swim strokes that the chairman taught her. She's among the thousands of freedom swimmers from that era. The borders were sealed, but I learned that the determined could cross over to Hong Kong. I could try to slip past the guards and their dogs across the land that connected the Kowloon Peninsula to the mainland. West of Hong Kong, another route began on rocky cliffs that took me through Shenzhen Bay. East of Hong Kong, the route through Mears Bay was longer, and sharks were said to roam the waters. For a month, I practiced swimming in a tributary of the Pearl River, hours a day until I became supple and strong. The chairman used to cradle me in the pool so that I could practice my strokes and kicks. I'd been weightless in his arms. Now I'd swim farther than he ever dared. The villagers must have known I wanted to escape. They didn't warn me or try to stop me, but they didn't have to. The drowned, those who didn't succeed in their quest to flee, washed up on shore, and authorities displayed their bloated, fly-blown bodies with their putrid reek as a warning. Catching a patched tire, I arrived at sunset. The sinuous terrace lines on the rolling hills resembled the stripes of a tiger poised to leap. Pollen drifted through the air. The golden canopy of the cassia tree, glowing in the last rays of light, seemed a beacon. Though the checkpoint with its barbed wire fence was on the other side of the peninsula, patrols were known to roam here too. I waded into the channels of water that snaked through the mangroves, grasses brushing against my pants, and mud sucking at my bare feet. A branch cracked and I ducked, listening and waiting. An animal, maybe. Farther into the marsh, the air smelled of moldering, of rotten eggs. I wondered if I was ready, if I should turn back. If I delayed any longer, I might lose my nerve. Blood pounding in my ears, loud as drums, I plunged into the waves. The ground fell away, the salt water burning my nose and mouth. With the tire, I could rest when I needed to and wouldn't have to swim the whole way. I kicked until a wave slapped me in the face, and I coughed and flailed, grasping at the surface, then clutching at nothing. The tire had slipped out of my hands. I treaded water, craning my head, but I couldn't see it. I'd gone too far to turn back, though, and I decided the breaststroke would sustain me the longest, slow and steady through the waves. Sometime later, I stopped again, trying to fight off the panic seeping in. I couldn't judge my direction, if I was coming or going. Was the jolt against my foot a shark nosing its way to the surface, or a tire floating back up? The chairman's early lessons returned to me. Stroke, 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 breathe. Stroke, 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 breathe. Stroke, 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 breathe. A sequence elemental as a heartbeat. Thank you. And now, Dan O'Brien.
Thank you for coming. I'm Dan O'Brien. These are my wonderful actors. We have Emily and Sean. Sean has played my doppelganger in other plays. Tonight he won't be, but hopefully it won't be too confusing. This is from a new play. First I want to thank, of course, Gwen, Leah, Adam. I was trying to think of a name like Benifer or like Barbenheimer, and the best I could come up with was Gwen Leadam. Let's see if it catches on. Okay, so this is from a new play called Newtown, and I was commissioned by Oregon Shakespeare Festival and the Public Theater to write a play about the history of guns in America, which was an overwhelming topic. And after researching for a few years, I found I wanted to write about Newtown and Sandy Hook, partly because it had become history and nothing had changed. Many people, I'm sure here, remember what that was like in 2012 and this feeling of something's going to change because of the horror of that event. So that's what the play's about, fair warning. It's not, what I'm going to read is not going to be graphic, but it's certainly somewhat heavy. The first act, I'm just going to read the very end of the first act, which is a monologue from spoken by Adam Lanza's mother, the shooter's mother, the dawn, the morning before he committed his crime. Adam Lanza had stopped talking, so the mother has been trying for about half an hour to draw him out and to try to understand what's going on with him and what he may be planning So I'm just going to read the very end of that, and then we're going to transition to the very beginning of Act 2. So again, this is Newtown. This is part 1, Adam's mother. Why are you smiling, Adam? Is it something I've said? Tell me what I'm not seeing. Because I have looked everywhere at everything like causes and circumstances, and still I cannot comprehend. Let me take this affliction from you. Like that time when you were a boy and you had a fever and you refused to let me sleep beside you, so I sleep outside your door on the floor. You call out for me in the night. Are you still out there, Mom? Mom? I'm still here, Adam. I'm still here, but I won't be here forever because I'm tired. I've been up all night rehearsing what I would say to you. I would like to place my hands on either side of your face and shake it, shake you. I'd like to force you to speak. I want to kiss you, to hold you like I did long ago. I long to feel your body in my bed, like you used to sleep with me, your breath, your small feet. What else can I do? I've disappeared. I'm a ghost. Like you. I know you walked by your old school last night. You've been walking by your old school many nights, haven't you? I know. Because a few nights ago I followed you, and I watched you walking around the playground, staring in through the glass, as if trying to figure something out. What is your plan, Adam? Do you want to hurt them because you love them too much? Give me an answer, or we'll have to go to the hospital this morning. Not a hospital, a home is what it's called. I've picked one out. I'll go there with you. I'll take you and stay with you at first, but I'd rather not. I'd rather not give up on you, Adam, on us. So tell me. Tell me. This is like a nightmare I had, or was it a premonition months ago? You and I had gone outside into this mountain meadow. You're laughing and talking to me like you used to till clouds came rolling in, then a gust of wind lifts you off the ground, just an inch or two, then higher. I reach out for your sneakers to pull you down, but the harder I pull, the harder the wind knocks me around till my eyes are stinging, and I can barely see you. I'm losing you. The wind's tearing you away from me, and I'm watching you disappear into the lightning and rain, and you're not crying. I know you can't bear to be touched, but I'm going to touch you now, okay? Every mother would give her life to save her child's life. Here is mine for you, if that's what you need. If you're so angry at me because I've failed you, take my life, Adam. I'm not afraid. I'll be sleeping in my room. And when I wake up, we'll know what to do. So part 2 is called Survivors. And this play is all very close to docudrama. I'm trying to work with as much primary source material as possible. And this second act of the play is based on an actual event where the parents of a victim, Robbie and Alyssa Parker, met with Peter Lanza, the father, about 5 weeks after the shooting. And they met in a kind of nondescript office building. And so that's where we're just going to begin this scene. Great, have some water. So they're in an elevator.
Somebody's coming.
We're gonna be late.
We can't just let the doors close on them, can we?
Why do you have to always...
What?
Sorry,
No problem.
it's really coming down out there.
Is it? We hadn't noticed.
All this rain is supposed to turn into an ice storm tonight?
The weather sure is something.
You know, I read somewhere that awkward silences in confined spaces like elevators can be about as painful as a trip to the dentist.
I don't know. I like clean teeth.
I want to thank you both for being willing to talk to me.
Oh,
I should have introduced myself before opening my mouth.
you're him.
I'm awkward sometimes. My wife, both my wives actually, I met my current wife. I'm not Mormon or anything. I'm a genius at misspeaking, they say. Speaking of which, I'm Peter Lanza. I'm Adam's father. The elevator dings.
Here we go.
After you.
Please.
No, I insist.
This is an excruciatingly long hallway. They said they'd leave the door open.
They enter a conference room. It's good of them to volunteer a space like this for us to meet.
It is.
Clean, deserted, neutral, real no man's land.
Well, it is the end of the working day.
Neutral?
They told me that we'd have about an hour or so before the cleaners come through with their vacuuming and whatnot, buffing the marble with the buffing machine.
This conference room is smaller than I imagined.
Oh, they left us little water bottles and candy, tissues.
How considerate.
Isn't it?
And one of those fully automated coffee machines with paper cups. You know what? I think I'm just going to hit the head.
No, by all means.
Peter goes.
Why are you making small talk?
I don't know how to be normal.
Don't take care of him, for starters.
Okay, you're right. I'm sorry.
I'm shaking. My hands
Just
are...
try to calm down.
Nobody likes being told to calm
You're safe.
down.
Hun, just breathe. Just breathe.
I've got butterflies like I'm being interviewed for a job. Why am I nervous? He should be nervous to talk to us.
We'll say what we rehearsed.
We'll ask our questions
Ask our
and then
questions and go home.
we can go home right now. That man doesn't care.
We came here for a reason. We prayed and we agreed.
Peter returns.
Boy, that was quick.
I know. I didn't really need to go to the bathroom for the real thing. I mean, I needed some water. But the door's locked, which is funny because they left the door, I mean, the front door open, but the door to the men's room, the hallway requires.
And there's got to be one around here.
But then I remembered there's water bottles here with which I might be able to swallow a pill, another pill. My hands can't stop
Well,
shaking.
let me get that for you, Peter.
Would you?
Gosh, they're not kidding with that childproof thing. There you go.
Would either of you care for a Xanax?
We're good.
And my face is like dripping with cold sweat. What a nightmare. I don't know why I'm here.
We were saying more or less the same
We invited
thing. We're
you.
not...
We should be thanking you.
And I am touched by the gesture, the olive branch.
Sorry, the branch?
You know what he means, hon. Like a peace offering.
We're not at war.
You're angry. You deserve to be angry.
Robbie.
So, Peter, the impulse to in any way express our anger at you or attempting to point fingers at anybody right now strikes both of us as a waste of time and energy that we'd rather be spending with our daughters.
How old are they?
2 and 5.
Jesus Christ. You're young. I don't know what I expected, but of course you're young. Your kids are. I could almost be your father.
Why don't we sit, Alyssa?
I'd rather remain standing, if that's okay with you. I don't know why it's so cold in this building.
It's winter.
I know. Thanks.
So, we want to thank you first Peter, for agreeing to meet with us. I mean, you thanked us first, but we thank you for even responding.
It blows my mind, frankly, that any of the families would want to meet me unless they're planning to murder me.
We're not planning to hurt you.
Well, that's a relief. Don't get me wrong, I'd deserve it.
This was my wife's idea, actually, and not to put you on the spot, hon, but let's begin by telling Peter what happened in temple.
You're Jewish?
We're Mormons. Is that funny to you? Our religion?
No, I'm embarrassed. I made a joke about polygamy like 2 minutes ago. I should have said something about Muslims.
Mr. Lanza.
Oh, Peter, please.
What I'm about to tell you, Peter, may sound simple or silly, like the sort of thing religious people say, be they Mormon or Muslim. But it's true what Robbie said. I was in the temple in Manhattan. We drove all the way down to Manhattan to visit the temple because it's the closest. You know the one across from Lincoln Center with the plays and the ballet and the culture? Mormons don't visit the temple regularly. It's not like church. We do attend our church weekly, at least. The temple is reserved for sacred ordinances.
Alyssa, he doesn't need to hear the history of the LDS Church.
No, it's interesting to me, really.
And I was in this room, like this room, come to think of it. Although we're not supposed to discuss the inside of the temple with outsiders. Let's say the room is like an office for prayer and revelation. When I hear a voice both in my head and out, you need to talk to the killer's father.
Whose voice was it?
Whose?
It doesn't matter whose voice it was exactly.
Sure,
Peter.
but was it God's?
I'm not crazy. God doesn't speak to me directly.
So was it your subconscious?
It was my heart. The voice was speaking from my heart.
You've never had an experience like that before?
I'm not religious.
That's okay.
I'm more of a science guy. Computers.
Computers are great. That's how we connected with you, through computers.
Why are you talking about computers?
I'm making small talk, I guess. Again, is that okay?
It's fine.
I laugh and I cry at the weirdest things, Peter. I'm shell-shocked, I guess. Though I've never served in a war, have you? But I feel stunned. Aren't we all still feeling that way? It's only been, 5 weeks? I still can't fully believe it happened. It's like it happened to somebody else who looks like me, us. You're hearing voices, I'm having dreams. It's already been a month, and sometimes I catch myself feeling like I've always lived this way. Other times I have no clue where I am. I was at the hospital.
Robbie's a physician's assistant.
Wow.
In the NICU in Danbury.
NICU means kids, right?
Infants.
We were in lockdown. We were in lockdown ourselves because of what was happening at the school. Everybody was watching TV. This particular talking head was making it sound like it wasn't such a big deal. You know, these things, these shootings happen all the time now. So I'm just waiting there in the ER as ambulances leave and none are coming back.
Take a tissue. Here's some water.
The last conversation my daughter and I had on that morning was in Portuguese, you know?
Robbie served his mission in Sao Paulo.
Bom dia, she said. Como vai, pai? I told her I was doing well. Eu te amo, pai. She kissed me on the cheek as I rushed out the door.
Hun.
It's okay. I'm okay. I'm not crying.
I'm vice president for taxes at a General Electric subsidiary.
Wow.
And I noticed everybody congregating around the TV in the cafeteria at work. Both of my sons went to that school, I thought right away. Back in my office with my club sandwich, I'm reading online about the shooters. They're saying 2 men, aged 20 and 24, the ages of my sons. I'm driving up my driveway, and a reporter's there, and she tells me they're identifying my son Ryan, who lives in Hoboken, who's never been any kind of problem. I promise you, he's a good citizen. I call my wife, Shelley, my new wife, at the library where she works. She's a librarian. And I find myself repeating, it's Adam, it's Adam, it's Adam. And when it hit me, I fell down.
I was at home. My phone rang, and it was an audio recording informing me that there had been a shooting at Newtown School. I failed to mention which school. I told myself it had to be the high school, right? Older kids, Columbine, that sort of thing, a domestic dispute with teachers, maybe. My hands were shaking like they are now. Oh, I'm a homemaker.
Sorry?
Hon.
I just thought I should tell you since you were both. Never mind. Well, that morning listening to my phone, I remembered coming for our parent-teacher conference in the fall and how it occurred to me then that in her classroom, that it was only 3 doors in from the entrance. And there wasn't a lock on the door to her classroom.
It's okay. You're safe. Take your time.
So that morning, the morning of the shooting, I'm thinking to myself, she is vulnerable. Somebody with a gun could...
It's not your fault.
I know.
It's a temptation. I blame myself sometimes, Peter. I mean, I chose that school because it reminded me of the school I went to, and the town, Newtown, also reminded me of home.
Where is home?
Ogden, Utah is where we're from.
We fell in love and got married there.
Your high school sweethearts?
You bet.
We were high school sweethearts as well, Nancy and me.
But Newtown and Ogden are very different.
Well, we liked that at first, didn't we, hon?
Everything was too green. In the summer, I mean,
A general store.
with brick sidewalks and yield storefronts and flower boxes sprouting purple-pink petunias and white steeples poking through, treetops, everything in Newtown just screams America.
Isn't Utah America?
Some would say Utah's more America than America.
What I mean is, New England is old. It's too old.
What brought you here, if you don't mind me asking?
Robbie's job.
We moved because of me.
We moved a lot when Robbie was in school, in Oregon, where our second daughter's born, and the rest of the Pacific Northwest, town to town, for Robbie's rotations. We didn't mind. We liked traveling.
We got here last winter. We've only been here a year. I wonder, of course, if only I'd taken that job in Taos.
If I remember correctly, hon, after a day driving everywhere with the realtor, it was me who circled Newtown on the map and said out loud, "This is where we will live."
It's reasonable to want to blame yourself. God, I should know.
It's not the same.
Of course not.
I believe what Peter's saying, what my wife's saying to me, Peter, too, is that we shouldn't blame ourselves. Our daughter wouldn't want us to blame.
Can you tell me what she was like?
We're not comfortable talking about her with you.
Okay, that's fine.
She is my heart. I'll just say that. There is an empty space in my heart now. You've heard the heart is like a fist, but I think it is more like 2 hands pressed together in friendship or prayer or struggle or whatever. There's always that empty space. And the space in my heart is bigger now. Our children are like our hearts beating outside our bodies. Obama said so at the vigil. Parenting is like living with your heart hanging outside your chest. No, not hanging. Your heart has grown its own too small pair of feet. And not only your heart, but other organs like your lungs breathing outside your body and your guts glistening and gurgling outside you in the apparently perfect bodies of your children. As they take their first steps away from you, as they grow older and they're naturally exposed to the mishaps and misunderstanding and circumstance of cancer, divorce, the news on TV of faraway sirens and pollution, but also, most painfully, the malice of others. Bullying, of course, but worse affronts like racism and the violence that brings us here today. We're well aware we can't raise our children on an island or in a cave or in the mountains because they'd only grow up paradoxically weaker and more vulnerable, so we teach them resiliency and how to make choices that heal the world. And then I remembered the shooter had been a child. The shooter had been somebody's child. And the idea pricked my heart. I hadn't yet considered the idea of feeling compassion for the family.
My family, you mean?
We know. No. We can imagine how hard it is for your family, Peter, and that is why we wanted to meet you, to help you if we can.
Help me? How?
We believe God imbues us with free will. He's powerless to limit our choices or to save us from the choices of others. Your son chose to take life away, so we are choosing to give it back.
Your daughter must have been proud to have you as parents.
She still is proud. There's no must have been. Our daughter is watching us through the veil right now.
But how do you know?
How do I know?
Do you see her? Do you hear her voice? I apologize if I'm offending you again.
No,
but
I haven't seen her or heard her voice yet. But Robbie has.
It was a dream.
Tell him.
If it's not too much to ask.
In the dream, I was lying in bed in the morning, but it wasn't our bed. It was a bed I'd never slept in before. I sensed her presence in the midst. And then she's standing in front of me. I can see her and touch her. She's beautiful, taller. She's the woman she would have become. She sits on the bed and says, "I'm a teacher now. I teach kids in heaven." But then she stops talking, and I'm telling her over and over, "You know how much I miss you." I kiss her on the cheek, and I keep telling her, "You know how much I love you, don't you?" We lean back on the bed with my arms wrapped around her and my head on her shoulder, and I think to myself, this is real. I can feel her heart beating on my neck, and my arms are wrapped around her body as I'm telling her over and over how much I love and miss her. But then she starts slipping away, and my arms are feeling less and less of her bodily presence, and I'm shouting out loud, "No, no, no." I can sense I'm returning to reality, and I don't want to leave this place. I don't want to leave. I don't want to know where this place is, but I know I need to stay here and hold on to her. But then I realize I'm home, in my house, with my daughter. My wife is asleep on my arm, and the bedside clock says it's 4:13 a.m. I wept. Not tears of grief, but gratitude, because I felt enveloped by the Spirit. The Spirit had given me this gift, and the feeling sat in my chest, in my soul, in a place that had never been touched in any way like this before.
She lives on in your hearts. I understand. I'm sorry, I can't say anything right. I'm jealous of people like you, people who believe in something, anything. I've been praying for you both, for all of you, the families, by which I mean I've been imagining your distress as I can't pray. I'm tortured by what happened every single minute of every single day and night. I can't eat.
We don't need your suffering. We need you to help us.
Help how?
By helping us learn why this happened.
I'm going to stop there. Thank you. Thank you.